Robbie Williams, playing with the crowd in Hyde Park last summer. Every inch the 21st century man. But is he or isn't he? Kylie Minogue, relaunching her career with those gold hot pants. It's fun being sexy again. 1997, and Tony Blair arrives in Downing Street, accompanied by his Fender Strat. People power has arrived. Britain is cool again. Even the new Prime Minister is a rock fan. So now, almost anyone can be a pop star. Girls who are boys, who like boys, who be girls, who do boys like their girls, who do girls like their boys. Always should be someone you really love. Girls who are boys, who like boys, who be girls, who do boys like their girls, who do girls like their boys. Always should be someone you really love.
Over the past few years, to the traditional sounds of an English summer, the drone of lawnmowers, the smack of leather on willow, has been added a new noise.
As the 90s dawned, music fans were rejecting the glossy, pre-packaged pop of the late 80s. They wanted something more raw, more real. Britain's green and pleasant land was invaded by a new dance culture.
You had to, on Friday, kind of ring a number to find out where the gig was, and then there was this whole kind of, rigmarole of driving around the countryside to find, the field where the do was on.
There's a definite sort of feeling that the youth were quite united. It was a real revolutionary thing. Yeah, there was quite a sense of, I guess that thing that must have happened in the 60s is where people felt like they were all part of one big tribe.
The tribe was defined by a new drug, ecstasy.
I was a huge clubber, and taking ecstasy just introduced me to a whole side of myself I didn't know existed. It was just a fantastic moment in my life.
I just had this shoom kind of rush. Yes, finally got it.
Yeah, I think ecstasy did actually definitely change my generation. It's a truth drug, so all of a sudden we were all saying stuff that we really felt that we wouldn't have the courage to say normally to each other. I think it made us more honest.
Everything starts with an E.
Ecstasy was a Class A drug that relaxed the inhibitions of those who took it and created moral panic among those who didn't.
Just about 5 minutes ago and we're here like best mate.
People seem to be more relaxed about sex.
It's just about pure enjoyment and dancing and just having a good time and meeting people like Kelly. Met her in Ibiza.
And about sexual preference.
The people that would have beaten you up for being a puff or for dressing a certain way started taking this drug called ecstasy, which removed their kind of Rottweiler anxiety and made them want to hug you.
The women dress very sexily here, yeah, and the blokes here respect that. They don't lech the women here.
I mean, for me, I really thought, I can go out clubbing again. I can go out clubbing without thinking that I'm in this constricted world, and if I look at anybody, they'll try and shag me. Unless I want them to.
In the 60s, beat groups came from Liverpool. In the 90s, rave groups came from Manchester. Guitar bands like the Stone Roses and the Happy Mondays started taking ecstasy and created a new sound, mixing rock and roll with rave. And round the edges of the new scene, two brothers waiting their turn. As the charts went techno, pop went faceless. So where was the next big thing?
Hello, my name is Jason Orange. I come from Manchester. I decorate in the daytime and I dance at the night time. I started dancing in my bedroom and I absolutely love it. Okay?
The Beatles had the Cavern. Take That had the Manchester clubs. Their Brian Epstein was Nigel Martin Smith. But his vision was distinctly 90s.
Nigel Martin Smith cast them, they didn't know each other, he put them together, A, as a vehicle for his friend Gary Barlow to have a group around him, because Gary wasn't the sexiest guy on earth, and therefore he put some sexy dancers around him to create the group. B, to have a group that was both appealing to the young teen market, that brought New Kids on the Block, who had just been very big prior to that, and appealing to a gay market.
At first, they concentrated on the Pink Pound, touring gay clubs and honing a raunchy image. But the mainstream continued to ignore them.
New Kids on the Block were very much an American heterosexual phenomenon aimed at young girls. Take That worked. Take That had the tongue-in-cheek gayness. Too much so in the beginning because they had the leather-studded jock straps and the bare bums.
The bums were too much for kids' TV. When they put their pants back on, they finally crossed over to the pop charts.
You are selling sex in a very strange way, but you're pretending you don't, because you're appealing to young girls, young kids, and you cannot sell sex at that age, really. You can gloss it over.
They've got to be fresh-faced, clean living. They can be queer as coots, but they mustn't be too obviously sexual. They must be apparently passive and so on. I mean, the recipe there is meant to empower the female audience from 8 to 80.
We were aiming records at 14, 15-year-old girls and gay men. We wanted to keep an ambiguity. If you look at Robbie Williams' early interviews, he was very clever. He would never admit one way or another. So because they were being interviewed by gay press and straight press, the brief was to all of them, is to play the mystery card. Because the thinking was, if a guy says he's gay, the little 14-year-old girl is not going to put the poster on her wall. But if a guy says he's straight, the gay guy is not going to fantasize about him. So no one was ever, in these groups, allowed to admit that they were 100% one or the other. Not ever.
I like it here.
Take That had learnt from the gay clubs that boys could be eye candy too. Now they all started taking their tops off. And the girls seemed to enjoy it as well.
I think
I like it here. I like it here.
There was a change in male vanity. I think men became more, whether pop was riding the coattails of that, or whether pop influenced it, I don't know.
In health clubs across the country, iron is being pumped and muscles flexed as the British male appears to be undergoing something of a transformation.
The physicality of men in pop didn't seem like a very predominant thing. I don't remember when I was a kid watching pop stars taking their shirts off. I don't think I've ever seen Mark Bolan's nipples. I don't recall ever seeing his chest. But in terms of pop, really tight shirts and muscles and all that kind of stuff, I don't recall it being a big issue, a big part of the pop scene prior to the early 90s, really.
You take your top off, the girls love it, sells more records. When you first start, you ain't really got a body. And then you look at someone else and think, yeah, he looks all right. Yeah, he's always in the magazine, I'm going to do something. Doing press-ups and sit-ups.
So there we had the future mothers of our nation lusting over these hairless, gym-pumped, leather-wearing, disco-dancing boys as the sort of emblem of what was desirable in a male. Another way of thinking of it would be, whilst they were at the Take That concert, their mums were probably at a Chippendale do.
And if you've actually seen it happen, like I saw the audience at the Westlife concert at the Manchester Arena, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the women create the sexual appeal. The boys are being very careful to give them fairly